Okay, let's go.
Hey you guys, welcome back for another video. Make sure as you come in you like and share this video. Also, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure that your notification bells are set so you are notified every single time I drop a new video.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the statutory aggravating circumstance or circumstances so listed above outweigh any mitigating circumstances. Therefore, we, the jury, unanimously find that the punishment for the defendant, Jesse Dotson, shall be death. May God have mercy on your soul, sir.
Hey you guys, listen, we are going to step back into some archives, okay? Now, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this particular case where it's called the Lester Street, I'm gonna call it UnAliving. And this is where a young man, his name is Jesse Dotson, unalived his brother's girlfriend, attempted murder on his children. 3 of them survived, and 2 friends in the house. Y'all, I seen this particular episode on the first 48, and I swear it just haunted me to death when I found out that it was the actual brother / uncle who actually did the unaliving. And I really wanted to find out a lot more background and information, because the first 48, they can't cram but so much into 1 hour. So I was so fortunate to come upon this particular documentary. It's short, but it gives so much information, you guys. So sit back, because honey, let's get into it.
March 3rd, 2008. Officer Randall Davis of the Memphis Police Department responds to a welfare check at 722 Lester Street in the Binghamton neighborhood of Memphis, Tennessee. Relatives of the home's resident, Cecil Dotson, had been unable to reach him by phone or in person for nearly 2 days. When Davis approaches the house, he discovers the door is already open. He steps inside and finds the body of an adult male lying beside a television. As he moves further into the home, he discovers a horrific scene. 6 people, including 2 young children, lay dead throughout the house. 3 other children, all critically wounded, had somehow survived for over 40 hours. This would become known as the worst mass murder in Memphis history. And the man responsible was someone the victims had trusted completely. This is the story of Jesse Dotson and the Lester Street Massacre.
Okay, you guys. So, quick disclaimer. Your discretion is advised, because if you don't want your children to listen to anything that has to do with unaliving and the condition that they find these people in, and please do not let them watch this, because like I said, I watched this years back, and even as an adult it had me tripping. So just a disclaimer.
Jesse Lee Dotson Jr. was born on December 19, 1974 in Memphis, Tennessee. From the very beginning, his life was marked by chaos and instability. His mother would frequently leave the home and her children, once going on a church trip to North Carolina and returning with a boyfriend. His father regularly beat his mother, prompting her to eventually take the children and leave him. According to a mitigation specialist, Glory Shettles, who studied Dotson's background for the defense, Jesse had apparently grown up in poverty. He and his siblings lacked proper clothing and were mocked at school as a result. Jesse was bullied relentlessly because of what he wore, and he began to miss school frequently to avoid the ridicule. He had to repeat the 4th grade due to chronic absenteeism. By 8th grade, at age 16, Jesse had dropped out of school entirely and entered the juvenile court system.
Okay, see, that right there, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, That breaks my heart. It really does, because when kids are not raised in the home and they have the full attention of their parents, and their parents, especially, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes single mothers, as women, we want companionship. So when we have kids, we tend to seek out companionship and we forget the needs of our children. This is not with all parents. This is just with some parents or some mothers who live in poverty, and they don't have the help of the father. So they do tend to seek companionship and they forget or neglect the needs of their children, especially emotionally and mentally. And you know, in the Black community, we suffer from a lot of mental and emotional issues that never get addressed, never get any type of help until it goes into violence, criminals in the juvenile system, where we catch records, where we start committing crimes. That's when it starts to come in. And unfortunately, he is a product of that environment.
However, even before dropping out, Jesse had already demonstrated violent tendencies. In 1990, when he was just 15 years old, Jesse was charged with disorderly conduct for making threats against his own mother. That same year, he was also charged with assault after a 13-year-old reported that Jesse punched him in the face and threatened to hospitalize him if he didn't bring him money the next day. In 1991, police arrested Jesse for disorderly conduct again after his mother reported that he came home wanting to fight his brother. During the incident, he broke down a door and punched several large holes in the walls of their home. He then pointed his finger in his mother's face and told her he was going to kill her. Officers had to be called to calm him down. On December 13, 1991, just 6 days before his 17th birthday, police pulled over a car in which Jesse was a passenger. Inside, they found him in possession of a sawed-off shotgun and a pistol. He was subsequently arrested. In 1992, Jesse was again charged with disorderly conduct after an incident in which he cursed at a neighbor during an argument and threw 2 beer bottles at her apartment. Then on January 8, 1994, 19-year-old Jesse Dotson committed his first murder. Residents of the Foot Homes public housing development heard gunshots around 11 p.m. and went to investigate. They found the body of 43-year-old Hallie Ralph Cox, dressed in painter's clothes, shot once in the head. The murder was one of 9 committed in Memphis during the first 9 days of 1994. The killing had stemmed from a drug deal gone bad. Cox had purchased what he thought was crack cocaine from Jesse, but later discovered it was nothing more than soap shavings. When Cox confronted Jesse about the fake drugs, the 2 men argued and Jesse shot and killed him. The murder remained unsolved for months, prompting police to offer a $1,000 reward for information.
$1,000. Back in 1994, $1,000 for information. Now, you know, these days people won't even open their mouth for $2,000 because it's not a lot of money. But back then, $1,000 was a lot back then. So somebody snitched.
On May 5th, 1994, police finally arrested Jesse Dotson in connection with the case. Jesse was originally charged with first-degree murder, but he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder as part of a plea deal and agreed to 18 years in prison. He was first eligible for parole after about 5.5 years. However, Jesse did not receive parole for 13 years. As part of his parole conditions, he was required to serve the remainder of his prison sentence if he was ever caught with a weapon or drugs, or if he was involved in any other criminal activity. He ultimately served 14 years in prison for the murder and was released on August 27, 2007. His parole later officially ended on January 26, 2008.
He rarely got mail, visitors, or even phone calls, and he seemed to harbor ill feelings against his family, especially his brother Cecil.
He stayed in there with me about 3 months. He told me about he was gonna do something to his brother when he got out. You know, and when he got out, he was gonna do something. He couldn't leave no witness behind. Never talk about violence. I always talk about robbing people. I always talk about doing something to folks.
Now imagine, during this whole time he's in prison, 14 years, no family, no phone calls, no visits, no nothing. This man has built up anger. Not only has his childhood, he was made fun of being in poverty, felt like he was let down by his mother, just totally a child full of abandonment issues and everything else, violence, everything, basically just raised itself in the street, might as well say allegedly. Now nobody comes to visit him, sends him money, nothing. They just totally abandon him. So he's coming out with some anger, some rage. He's mad as hell. No rehabilitation. If he was up for parole after 5.5 years and he couldn't get it, it's because obviously, one, he wasn't remorseful, and two, he was getting in trouble. So he's coming out on demon time, okay?
Upon his release from prison, Jesse moved in with his sister, Nicole Dotson, at her apartment in Goodwill Village in Memphis. He began working with his father, Jesse Dotson Sr., as a painter. Despite the hostile relationship he'd had with his family throughout his youth, Jesse rekindled his relationship with his younger brother, 30-year-old Cecil Dotson. Cecil worked as a maintenance man at an apartment building and rented a house at 722 Leicester Street, just north of Summer Avenue in the Binghamton neighborhood. Cecil lived there with his girlfriend, 27-year-old Marissa Renee Williams, who was the mother of 4 of his children. However, even with the renewed relationship, tensions between Jesse and Cecil remained. On January 29, 2008, just 3 days after Jesse's parole ended, Jesse, Cecil, and several other men were playing cards at Cecil's home. After the card game, Jesse stood up, put on Cecil's leather jacket, and began to walk out of the house. Cecil confronted him about taking his jacket. However, it's not clear if this escalated into a major argument. On Saturday, March 1st, 2008, Jesse Dotson Sr., Jesse Jr., and William Waddell, Cecil's and Jesse's half-brother, went to Cecil's Leicester Street home to watch a televised University of Memphis basketball game. Marissa Williams and the 5 children were also present. However, the group was unable to watch the game because Cecil's television could not receive the broadcast. Jesse Sr. left Cecil's house around 6 o'clock or 6:30 p.m., and as he was leaving, he saw Cecil on the porch cleaning his grill and preparing to barbecue. Later that evening, 2 of Cecil's friends arrived at the house, 33-year-old Hollis Seals and 22-year-old Shindri Robertson. The group spent the evening together, and at some point, Jesse Jr., Cecil, and Hollis Seals left the house and drove to an acquaintance's apartment. They eventually returned to Leicester Street. Unfortunately, things take a much darker turn from here. It's now March 2nd, 2008. In the early hours of the morning, Jesse Dotson would get into an intense argument with Cecil. The argument eventually escalated into a physical fight and altercation. During the argument, Jesse would brandish a semi-automatic handgun and then proceed to shoot his brother multiple times, killing him. Jesse decided that he would not leave any witnesses behind to his crime, disturbingly echoing a similar threat he had conveyed to a former cellmate of his while he was serving time for murder.
He was gonna do something to his brother when he got out. He was gonna do something, he couldn't leave no witness behind.
Jesse would first shoot Marissa Williams. He then shot Hollis Seals and Shindri Robertson. All 4 adults in the house would die of gunshot wounds. And even more disturbingly, Jesse would set his sights on the young children in the home. Instead of continuing to use his gun, however, he'd grab wooden boards from inside the house and several kitchen knives. He had told police later that he'd run out of bullets. Jesse would attack 4-year-old Samario Dotson. He then attacked 2-year-old Cecil Dotson II. He also attacked 9-year-old Cecil Dotson Jr., known as CJ, 5-year-old Cedric Dotson, and 2-month-old Sania Dotson. CJ, who would survive the ordeal, said that his uncle attacked him initially. The young boy tried to call 911, but dropped the phone when he saw his uncle standing in the doorway. CJ would ask to use the restroom, but as he entered, Jesse stabbed him. Following the gruesome massacre, Jesse tried to make it look like the crime was related to gang violence. He moved bodies, disposed of some of the weapons, and collected cartridge casings. He also planted several drugs on some of the adult victims and fled the scene using CJ's bicycle, hiding it at his girlfriend's house. And then, Jesse went out for dinner at a restaurant that evening, and the next day he would head out to work. For over 4
So, you guys, I don't know how closely, I don't know if you guys seen the first 48, but I'm going to tell you this. For him to have turned around and stabbed and beat those kids with those boards, that's what happened. He ended up beating the kids with the board and then stabbing them to death, okay? Luckily, 3 of the kids survived, which he didn't know. When he left, according to the history, alleged, when he left the scene, of course, you heard he went home to his girlfriend's house, they went out to eat, then he went to work. For the next couple of days while they investigated, they thought it was the Gangsta Disciples, okay, which is, a very popular gang. Thought it was a gangster. So they thought it was gang related. So they felt like, hey, if they come after the brother and his family, they're going to go after you. So they put Jesse and his sister and his family mother in protective custody. So during this time, Jesse was an active participant in the investigation. He was crying, doing news interviews, saying, we're going to find out who did this, just playing the victim, like he was a victim of the family. He was playing it off very well. He stayed with his sister the whole entire time. I mean, just really acting like he didn't know a thing. But little did he know, 3 of the children survived. The oldest one eventually ended up telling who it was. When they went into the hospital, when the boy eventually awoke, they went into the hospital and they asked, do you know or did you recognize who did this? And the boy said, my Uncle Jesse. And I'm telling y'all, that thing broke everything inside of me. But the police did not tell Jesse that the boy was awake. They kept that from him. And they brought him back in for questioning again. That's how they got him to confess. That's not in this documentary, but just to let you know, that's how he ended up confessing.
40 hours, nobody knew what had precisely transpired within the Lester Street home. Neighbors in the area had not initially called emergency services, as gunfire was a common occurrence, and so nobody had thought the sounds of the gunshots in the Lester Street area was worth calling the police for. By March 3, 2008, Cecil's relatives contacted police after being unable to reach him. It was at this point that Officer Randall Davis would respond to the welfare check and enter the home through the front door. Inside, he would find the horrifying crime scene. Eventually, firefighters arrived, and the smell was apparently that of spoiled blood inside the home. They found CJ still alive in the bathtub. Despite a knife being stuck in his head, he had miraculously survived.
Now, y'all know that wasn't nothing but God. That wasn't nothing but God covering that boy. What was it? They said 40 hours? What is that like? 2 days, just about 2 days, God had him covered completely.
Found Cedric and Senia to still be alive as well. Unfortunately, though, all other people staying in the Lester Street home that day were dead. Cecil Dotson was known to police as being affiliated with a gang known as the Gangster Disciples, and so investigators initially believed that it was a gang-related retaliation that had led to the attack. Hollis Seals also had a criminal record along with Cecil, and that included possession of illegal drugs and firearms. The surviving Dotson family members, including Jesse Dotson, were taken into protective custody. For days, police pursued the idea of the hit being related to gang activity, but on March 7, 2008, CJ was finally able to speak with investigators. When asked who was responsible for the attack, he identified his uncle, Jesse Dotson. Police immediately arrested Jesse and charged him with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Jesse eventually confessed to the murders, both to police and later to his own mother. He admitted to his mother that he killed the children because they were witnesses to the murder of Cecil. In September 2010, Jesse Dotson was tried for the massacre. The trial was held in Memphis, but jurors were selected in Nashville due to intense local coverage of the case and the broadcast of his confession on A&E's series The First 48.
Okay, so let me explain about what he just said. That was to ensure that Jesse had a fair trial. So basically, the public and the media had already condemned him in the county that he was in. So there was no way that he was going to have a fair trial. So they basically had to find jurors outside the jurisdiction that may not have known much about the trial, much about the situation in order for him to have a fair trial. You got to go in where there's no bias in the situation. So that happens in trials, any type of trial, murder trial, or any type of major trial that there is. They have to make sure that they will give the defendant a fair trial and not go into it already biased. That's the same thing they probably will do with the Carmelo Anthony trial. They might end up, and I think they were talking about having his trial done in another county, but I don't know how they ruled on that yet. But that is another trial that I am going to follow up on, so we'll see.
Despite having confessed to both police and his mother, Jesse changed his plea to not guilty at trial. He claimed he had been hiding under a bed in the master bedroom when he heard others enter and begin shooting. He claimed that he didn't report the crime because gang members don't tell police about these things, and he feared being blamed due to his prior criminal record. The defense also claimed that there was no DNA evidence linking Jesse to the crime scene. Police had found unidentified fingerprints and hair from an unknown Asian individual. The defense also said that Cecil had ties to the gangster disciples and that this could have played a role in the killings. CJ, who was 11 at the time of the trial, took the witness stand and described the brutal scene in detail, identifying the attacker as his uncle, Jesse Dotson. This testimony would ultimately sway the jury and the court into making a decision on if Jesse was guilty or not. On October 11, 2010, the jury found Jesse Dotson guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder. The following day, the jury would take less than 2 hours to sentence Jesse to death. He was given 6 death sentences for the 6 murders. At a separate sentencing hearing on November 8, 2010, Judge James Beasley imposed an additional 120 years in prison for the 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder to be served consecutively. The 3 surviving children were taken in by their grandmother, Ida Anderson, who was also the mother of victim Marissa Williams.
Now, I ain't gonna tell y'all no lie. Being that they don't really have any DNA evidence, and if he can somehow get the CJ, the boy that testified, because that's ultimately what put him in jail, not DNA evidence, not anything. If he can get his testimony thrown out, he can get his sentence overturned. Simple as that, because that's how he was convicted. But how he's going to do that, I don't know. But if you can say the boy was under distress or something like that, or coerced or something like that, however, he could probably get it overturned. But I don't see that happening because, you know, a little boy, and I think the boy might have been 9 at the time. So, you know, listen, I've seen things happen that was supposed to happen and they have happened. So, I believe that he is trying to get his sentence overturned as of today. But I don't buy it. He did it. He's guilty as hell. And it's sad.
Jesse Dotson currently sits on death row at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. With 6 death sentences, he currently holds the highest number among inmates on Tennessee's death row. He continues to maintain his innocence and has filed multiple appeals, claiming that his confession was coerced and that he received ineffective assistance of counsel. In 2024, he filed a 249-page petition asking the court to vacate his conviction and death sentence, alleging that police forced him to falsely confess and that his nephew's testimony was unreliable due to medication. However, CJ continues to maintain his story and says that Jesse is simply trying to lie. To this day, the Lester Street Massacre remains the worst mass murder in Memphis history.
I said I love him, and he said no, you don't.
He deserves to die right now, and he don't deserve no legal rights.
I still love them, but I didn't kill their parents.
Therefore, we, the jury, unanimously find that the punishment for the defendant Jesse Dotson shall be death.
All right, you guys, tell me what you think. Do you believe him? Do you believe he was really hiding under a bed? Do you believe that it was really some gangsters? Do you believe his nephew? I do. Anyway, you guys, comment down below. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. And I'm going to leave you with this. People are sometimes the victim of their environment. When you see children going through certain things, don't be so quick to judge them. Help them. Making fun and judging people because of poverty, the way they dress, the way they eat. If they're children, they can't help that. But what you're doing is when you're making fun and you're talking, you're only leading them to their destruction and possibly the demise of another. So, it takes a village to raise children. Keep that in mind the next time you want to make somebody's circumstance your commentary.